Hello folks, hope you're having a great day today. Today I want to take a look and review the second in a series of books by Roger Zelazny. It's the Guns of Avalon. As this is the first time I've reviewed a sequel that I really do want to kind of talk a little bit about that and what I'm thinking about what I want to do for this sequel. I think what I'm going to do is probably just finish reviewing the rest of the 5-book series actually today. I'm going to record the videos now, and then what I will do is once I've recorded these videos I will then kind of save them and do them probably about a month at a time. Give you a chance, if you are interested in following along, to do so. While I try to keep each of my reviews spoiler-free as much as possible, I will, because this is a sequel, out of necessity, have to, unfortunately, reveal some of the spoilers, major plot points from the previous novels in the story, which is incredibly important in this story because so much happens. The Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny is definitely a political story with warring factions, members of the family that are going to constantly betray each other, or revelations are going to happen, and so forth. And friends will become foes, and foes will become friends, and people that you thought were dead are going to be alive, people you thought were alive are going to be dead. It's a very dense story, a lot of that sort of gripping stuff that's happening. So it's incredibly, it's very much, I think, where probably the house of the Game of Thrones from George R.R. Martin probably got a lot of his inspiration from, as it is that sort of a political thing. A lot of traditional fantasy fans who preferred, this thing's being written in the 70s, who would have preferred a more traditional combat style fantasy series are going to be pretty much disappointed with this. There are fights and battles, but there's not that sort of huge number of battles, huge number of fights happening like there are in most other contemporary fantasy novels at this time. It's hugely influential for a number of reasons. So we've already reviewed the first story in this 9 Princes in Amber. So right now I'm going to do the second story, the Guns of Avalon. And we'll take a look at the Guns of Avalon a little bit. But to get you caught up, Roger Zelazny, this is really the only series that he writes during his career, is this series. Typically he writes one-ofs. He doesn't go back and do them again. He tends to write against whatever people are doing at the time. He writes science fiction, fantasy, and horror. He's won many awards from it. I've had many different reviews for you from some of his stories already. And again, when he will write something that's very different than what other people are writing, and then he won't go back to it. He's done with it. Most of his pieces have a mythology that's a part of the piece that he taps into, whether it's Hindu mythology or Egyptian mythology, or whether it's Christian or the Cthulhu mythos or something like that. But in the Chronicles of Amber, basically what he does is he creates his own mythology. He's creating his own world, he's creating his own magic systems and such. So that is what he's done. So this is now the second book. So let's go back to the first book. I'm going to give you some light spoilers as to what happened in 9 Princes of Amber and how it concluded. And then we're going to move forward now to the Guns of Avalon and what it's trying to do. And then we'll continue that further with my review of the third book. I'll take a look at the Guns of Avalon and what happened with a little bit of light spoilers. And then we'll move on to the third book. And so on and so forth. Sign of the Unicorn, Courts of Chaos, and such. We'll take a look at all the books in the series. So, second book, again, is the Guns of Avalon. So, what happened in the first book, 9 Princes in Amber, is that our main hero, Corwin, woke up with in a hospital on Earth with amnesia after escaping and realizing that he was put there by some of his family members and such. He realizes that he is actually super secretly a member of the House of Amber. He is one of the major Amberites who has been, whose father was Oberon, who ruled House Amber and the plane of Amber. Amber is the center of the sort of multiverse, and basically all the various planes that are out there are shadows of Amber. And the closer you are to Amber, the more like Amber you are. And the further you are away from Amber, the farther away, like Earth, you'll be much less like this sort of traditional Amber, which is sort of this traditional sort of an old school magical setting, if that makes sense. And there also, as you get further out from Amber, there will also be planes that are more similar to each other nearby than they are going to be like Amber, because they're close, because that sort of like eddies will form and such. Now, members of the House of Amber actually know that this is like this, and if they have walked the pattern, then they can also mentally move from one plane to the next. So if you're a member of the house, so if you're an Amberite and you've walked the pattern, then you can mentally move while while you're walking or jogging or something like that, you can just mentally move yourself from that plane to the next plane, to the next plane, to the next plane, to the next plane. You can basically plane walk from plane to plane, plane to plane to plane. You understand that these are planes of shadow and so forth. So creatures will often be referred to as creatures of shadow, people of shadow, and so forth. And it means they're coming from these planes that are shadows of Amber itself, which is the first prime plane. On Amber, as I kind of just sort of alluded to, there is this primal pattern, which is a pattern by which people who are walking the pattern will gain powers, insights, and so forth. It's also how an Amberite will walk the pattern and so forth. There's also on the main plane of Amber, this ocean. And at the bottom of this ocean is this perfect reflection of Amber called Regma, which is Amber backwards, with a pattern. And so what ends up happening in the first book is that Corwin realizes that he can regain some of his powers, memories, and so forth if he walks the pattern. But the pattern is guarded by the castle, who's being held by Eric, who he does not like at all, and he wants to unseat and become the king. He walks the pattern in Regma, regains all of his powers and stuff, memories and such, in this reflected pattern, and then that allows him to begin to put together some of his fellow family and so forth, and he launches an attack on Castle Amber after he reaches out to contact his dad, thinking that his dad was dead. Everybody thought that the dad Oberon had passed away. In fact, he has a brief contact with Oberon, with the Trump's magic, and basically Trump magic works. Members of the House of Amber have these trumps of different people. If they pick up a piece of that Trump card and they concentrate on them and so forth, they can actually communicate with them and potentially teleport to that person's place with that person's permission and so forth. So it's a means of communication and magic across the planes. And so anyway, he uses that trump to contact his dad. Everybody thought that his dad is dead. After concentrating for a while, he's able to break free, have brief contact with his dad, realize that his dad Oberon is actually alive. So he launches his attack on the kingdom in order to take it from Eric. Ultimately, it's going to fail. And in fact, Eric's going to win. And in order to sort of avoid this sort of death curse, instead of killing his brother Corwin, Eric is going to instead just blind him and throw him into jail. Corwin does have like a lesser curse. You're going to realize that death curses are a major part of the story. Amberites, if they die, can launch this death curse that's just nasty and terrifying and damaging. So Corwin does have a lesser curse because he's blinded and thrown into jail and forgotten for years and years. His sight will slowly restore. He stole a spoon from Eric, and he's sharpened it and been using it in his thing. While he's been in there for a few years, this old gentleman named Dworkin, who was his father's mage, a magic user, comes into his cell to visit. He teleports through the wall. And basically at this point, Corwin realizes that trumps can be used for more than just, and Trump magic for more than just the trumps cards themselves, and that their powers are more powerful than he realized and his family realized. While Dworkin is in his cell visiting him, Corwin asks him to draw a picture on the wall of a nearby place by a lighthouse, and he does. And basically what ends up happening is that Corwin concentrates on it and teleports to that location, thus showing that the powers of the trumps are more powerful than the family realized, and that you can draw it and just go to that place and stuff too. So he teleports to the lighthouse, gets out, sends a message to Eric, and this is the end of the story, saying, I'm going to come back and take back the kingdom. So the second book now, we'll pick up there, and this is going to be the Guns of Avalon. And what's going to happen here, and again, now this one, I'm going to keep very sort of spoiler light because I don't want to spoil much of the plot that happens in the Guns of Avalon. But what will basically happen is that Corwin is now going to set up to take out the castle Amber. And what basically he's going to be wanting to do is he's going to want to build an army that's actually going to work. Now, most of the family of Amber have believed that gunpowder doesn't work in the original plane of Amber. And the reason why is because there is this issue with chemicals, the chemical construction of all the various gunpowders that are out there from these different planes. None of them work in our main plane of Amber, but Corwin's actually found one. He ruled a plane called Avalon for a while. Avalon is very Arthurian in nature, so he's going to go back to Avalon, and there's this jeweler's rouge that was used there that can be used he believes can be used to combust like gunpowder in Amber. So he's going to go back home to Avalon. He is going to a plane that he ruled for a while. And then while he's on Avalon, he is going to make enough of this Jewelers Rouge that he can then go back to Earth. And then after walking back to Earth, he's going to have them make the guns, like machine guns and stuff like that, in mass. And then he's going to equip shadow soldiers with these machine guns that should work back home on his home plane. So that's his main goal. He's going to set out to create these sort of shadow guns and people that he can use to take out the main castle by using Avalon, by going back to Avalon. So he's going to journey back to Avalon. He gets back close to Avalon before he realizes that one of his people that is there named Ganelon, and Ganelon will journey with him after he finds Ganelon. Ganelon was one of his servants in Avalon, but he kicked him out after Ganelon had betrayed him, to a nearby plane. So he comes, as he's getting closer and closer to Avalon, he's in one of the nearby planes that's very similar to Ganelon, named Lorraine. And so forth. So while he's on Lorraine, there's going to be some adventures and so forth. Ganelon will basically join his quest for a while, and as somebody who's now redeemed himself from being a traitor. And Ganelon and Corwin will head on over to Avalon proper, where they'll run into somebody who's actually fighting against chaos. Now, the fight against chaos that is happening there is actually being done by one of his long-lost brothers, Benedict. So they will reunite, who nobody had seen for a long, long time, who's one of the strongest fighters and battle planners of the family, and so forth. And so Benedict, Corwin's going to go and help Benedict in his home plane of Avalon, and so on and so forth. One of the major revelations that happens early on in this novel is that some major changes are happening to creation itself. One of the biggest things that's happening is that back home on his plane, one of the home valleys has been cast in shadow. Corwin believes that this is his lesser death curse, because he didn't actually die. This is just his lesser curse taking action. As he's out near Avalon, though, he realizes that there is this giant road that has been basically carved into existence from one plane to another in these grasses that have sort of changed their color context and so forth, and become these dark, chaotic sort of roads that are going from one plane to another, and this is something that was never there before. And there are chaos creatures now that are attacking most of these planes. Every single plane that he exists is having attacks by various creatures and such. And he believes this may very well be his curse in action. That is kind of, even though he didn't die, so his curse is lesser, he believes that this could be like a lesser version or iteration of his curse, and so forth. So I'm not going to stop with too much of we're about halfway through the book now with some basic stuff. I'm going to stop there. Not going to give you the rest, except for the general confrontations and parables are going to happen throughout the rest of the book. Revelations are going to happen, things are going to happen, and so forth. And this book is basically where the beginning of the real story will pick up. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people who come into this series from a traditional fantasy perspective will prefer the first book, Nine Princes of Amber. It has more combat scenes, a clear bad guy in Eric that we're going up against, and so forth. But now you're starting to see more of the political side of the series in the Chronicles of Amber, and where you have these shifting alliances and people that are now being found, like Benedict, and so forth. And it's going to be more and more is going to follow down the pike. So anyway, that's kind of the Guns of Avalon short for you, and we'll cut off this review there. Have you read the Guns of Avalon? What'd you think of it? I'd love to talk with you more in the comments below, and so forth. And if you've watched this video, hey, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. I really do appreciate it. We all have busy days and busy lives, and the fact that you spent some of that time with me, I really do appreciate that, so thanks. If you like this video, there's no reason not to hit that subscribe button down there in that corner, big giant red button after all, and go ahead and commit. I do lots more of these reviews of forgotten classics in fantasy, science fiction, and horror. So once again, thank you for your time. You have a great day.